Well, this one's going to be a little different for finally replying to old comments part 22 because I'm trying not to disturb anyone else in my home. Cats are digging at the door and I got to be quiet. Don't have much light. But back in the studio that I haven't been in since the Ulysses review, and it was about 6 years ago. So, speaking of the Ulysses review, the first comment from part 20 of Finally Replying to Old Comments is from somebody who had a comment in the Ulysses review that was recorded in the same studio, and by studio I mean pushed up against the closet door. Static and Rust said, "Hey Michael, has anyone ever told you you look like the love child of Ryan Gosling in a Xenomorph? Just wondering." How dare you? How dare you use my insult and not even give me credit as the originator of that insult? That's what I said back in 2021. Part 8 of his master plan revealed, part 15 of his master plan revealed. I know it's supposed to be an homage, like I'm supposed to be flattered that you used my insult against me, but if you don't come up with an original insult about my appearance, I'm going to consider that the greatest insult of all. Like, for instance, the insult that you came up with describing James Joyce's mindset when he wrote Ulysses. Or was that taken from somebody else too and not given credit? Just prove that you can come up with an original insult. And try to keep it YouTube friendly so I can actually read it. Thank you, Static and Rust. The other comment from that video was from Megatini, who said, "Hello, Michael. I hope you and your family are enjoying the summer too." Well, the thing about that is, even though I've been out of school for decades at this point, I'm still in the summer vacation mindset that once summer starts, I'll have a lot more free time and things to do. It's actually the opposite when you become an adult and a parent. Not that I'm complaining, it's just I really wish I could shake that mindset. So, yes, we are enjoying the summer too, and I'm glad to hear that yours is. So, now moving on in this quiet, dark edition of Finally Replying to Old Comments to the comments section from his master plan revealed part 9. And where we left off was at a very long comment from Sonia Marie Alves de Mello. And I actually considered skipping this because it's so long and we're right at the beginning of the video now. A lot of it's hard to decipher in a second language, but I'm going to go with it because I think the whole purpose of this series is to try to understand each other. That's the antidote to people like Chris Watts, to people like those in power who want to keep us divided by putting us in all into separate categories and making us hate different categories. Trying to understand each other is the solution to that. Well, this thing might run out of power before I'm done. All right, let's go. Sonia Marie Alves de Mello says, "It's true, whatever he duel on is the opposite." I think you're saying whatever he says is not the case is actually the case. His whole lying style there, where he just says, "This didn't happen," and then you know by the Chris Watts rule that actually happened. It's the simplest lying style ever, and he thinks it would work because most people in everyday life never question him on it. but it doesn't work against people who deal with that kind of stuff for a living. Anyway, moving on. Even talking about they vanished, he looks towards where he knows they are. He never had any conversation with Shanann. Well, as I said, I think if he did have a conversation, it was probably while he was taking her life, just saying all the things that he wanted to say now that she couldn't respond and never would be able to. Noon talk about divorce, separation, to a tired pregnant wife, 4 a.m. No way. He has never worried about their safety, or at least pretended he care. It was all about I miss these, I miss that. No, he was not missing anyone. That was another example of the doublespeak where the things he was saying he missed was actually things that made him want to get everyone out of his life. So, yeah, accurate observation there. He was delighted that the vanish history, he was delighted that the vanish history, he thought everyone was believing it. He thought if a pass the lie test, if I pass the lie test, I'm free for good. Yep. And to Grammy's credit, to Graham and Tammy's credit, they and the whole police force working as a team had convinced him that that was the case. Just take this lie detector test and we'll send you on your way, and then we'll move on to finding the actual people guilty. They manipulated the manipulator. Very satisfying, and it worked. The scan bag, though. Everyone is believing my lies. Did you mean scumbag? He is really stupid. Of course, and in some ways, he's smart as far as, excuse me, pattern recognition and memory, but as dumb as it gets when it comes to certain aspects of human intelligence, as we've gone into before and probably will again. Continuing on, and of course, he wants the house free mortgage, pays the bank and have enough to buy a smaller one. I'm sure that element was involved too, as some other commenters have said. I just never thought that the money was the only issue, because there are other ways out of getting out of a money hole than risking the rest of your life in prison by murdering the people you're supposed to be protecting and you're supposed to love. So their money was a factor, but it was the issue of how do I get money and save money by without with this wife and kids in my life. That went into that problem going into a normal, mature brain would come up with a million different solutions. It went into Chris's immature brain and came up with murder. So yeah, money was an element. Then he can rent a flat to begin with until Nick invites him to move in, like Shanann did. The house was Shanann. Thumbs up. I'm trying to follow your line of thinking there. I mean, you're kind of implying that he would go down the same road with the mistress that he went down with Shanann, which I agree with. He was only, like as he said in the prison interview, it was the mistress was new. Anything new always feels better than the old, which I strongly disagree with. And when it comes to humans, at least. So that was alluding to the fact that he just sees people as objects, that a human being can just get old. I mean, sure, you get tired of people obviously in real life, but you want your time away from people. But I'm talking about a woman that he did everything in his power to convince her to marry him, have kids with him. He got tired of that after all that effort. He should have said he was tired with her before the proposal. But he had already done everything with her, and then He's ready to move on to something else and is willing to take away everything she has. So you're pointing out um, reasons that any normal person would have alternate solutions to, and the fact that he's a psycho and a scumbag for picking what he picked. Okay, the vanished history and passed the test was his freedom. He was never worried about his family. Forgotten about, looked worried. I think you mean he forgot to look worried? Or I think he just never considered that he would need to look worried because remember, he wasn't planning to have everyone searching for them the first day. He was planning to have that 24 to 48 hour period where you don't have to, like, you can't report someone missing for like whatever the minimum is, 28 hours, 24 hours. So he was going to be telling everyone through Shanann's phone that Shanann was okay, through her voice, like, I'm okay, me and the kids are at a friend's house. But then, so he was planning to be the husband dealing with that, expecting everyone's sympathy, like, oh, poor Chris, they left him. They left him all alone and he loves them so much. That's the kind of act he was ready to put on as the sympathetic husband and father that got abandoned by his wife and kids. So, yeah, he wasn't prepared at all and didn't know how to act like he was concerned for their safety. Good observation. Okay, then you go into, I think you think the babysitter was involved in it somehow, which again is another thing along with the mistress having her hands dirty. Something I'm willing to consider. It's just that all the evidence, including Chris, tens of hours of footage of Chris's behavior and his testimonies, none of which says that it was anybody but himself. Other people could have had an influence on him, but again, he's the one who should have said, what am I thinking? This is not the right way to go. It's his responsibility. If he can be so easily swayed by others, then he should be in prison anyway. But I think you're saying, okay, I believe he killed the girls well before Shanann. Do you have any news on the birthday party the girls went? So far, no pictures of the girls alive last day. I did see a picture of Chris and his daughters at the birthday party. And I saw the podcast with that family who was holding the birthday party. I think it was called Eyes of a Monster, where the guy interviews the parents of the kid who had the birthday party that Chris and the girls went to. Again, the babysitter mentioned Nick. Just a minute here. And they mentioned, so far, no pictures. Yep, they did have them. On a party, nothing. Again, the babysitter mentioned Nick asked me what flavor of pizza I like. Nick asked me what flavor of pizza I like. I'm going to have to let that one go. I have no idea which Nick you're talking about or who is saying what pizza I like or how the babysitter fits into all that. I tried. In the autopsy show, the kids never eat any pizza. I never saw that piece of evidence. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I just didn't come across it at any point. But okay. So they were in bed sleeping, or already dead to frame the babysitter. If she went and checked on them, normally they don't. They are in case they wake up. If the babysitter found them dead, she would be suspected of killing them. The babysitter who was crazy all over the newspaper. Again, that's another thing I never saw. Anything about the babysitter being crazy. I've never even seen a picture of the babysitter all over the newspaper as he would. Are you just speculating on if the babysitter was framed? Then, like Shanann was tried to be, Chris tried to portray Shanann as out of her mind and would murder her kids. You're saying that he was trying to frame the babysitter before that? The only reason I don't think he would do that is, if that is what you're saying, is because that would be too big and sloppy. We already see how sloppy it was, where everyone in the same house were the only ones involved. But trying to involve another kid from another family who's going to have her own parents like guiding her, I think Chris would have found that a little too risky, especially since she would have so many alibis. She would have probably, I don't know anything about this babysitter. I'm guessing it's a normal human being, even though it was a younger kid or teenager, whatever she was. I'm thinking it would have been a normal reaction, like if she discovered that the kids were already dead when she was there, she would have immediately reported it. She wouldn't have done what Chris claims to do in his first thing, where he immediately wraps everyone up and brings them to his job and shoves them into a hole in the ground and oil tanks. I don't think the babysitter would have reacted that way. So they were fine when I arrived. I put them into bed. Could also be Nick. She was in the house that night, according to babysitter. I never heard that either. I never heard of the babysitter. Did you like see some kind of an AI faked interview with the babysitter? Or if you are still listening at this point, could you point me to where all this stuff was said? Because I mean, I spent a big chunk of my life going through all this stuff, and I'm not a professional by any means, but it by the time I was done with it, it painted a pretty clear picture of everything that happened. So could be, but most probably was him. Okay, so you're just spitballing here, throwing stuff against the wall, seeing what sticks, which is what everyone should do when they at first when they don't know all the details. If he didn't manage for any reason to kill Shanann, he would have been free from paying the kids' maintenance. If Shanann survived, she would let him not see the kids. That would be fine for him. He has not yet told the real true, with lawyers involved, etc. He was told to stick to a story to save his life in prison. He is more evil than we think, far, far more. Psycho serial killer. Like your point of view, I comment with all other online detectives. I have my own theory. He is a typical psycho. Yeah, I've seen your comments on, I think it was Live Abuse Free video, but I wouldn't consider myself an online detective, if that's what you're implying there. All other online detectives, as if I'm one. Um, okay, well, that's the end of that nice long comment. Tried my best to understand it. I think we kind of do see eye to eye. We're both willing to hear all points of view, but we want them to make sense. Okay, moving on. The next comment is from Dream Crazy 38. The sand slash dirt was incredibly soft out there. With his strength and adrenaline, he would have dug that in 10 minutes tops. It was shallow as too. If he dug it on the Friday, you'd think he would have chosen a spot way deeper out into the field rather than on the side there. Well, yeah, there's a ton of Monday morning quarterbacking we can do when we look back on his plan, the way it played out with all the variables and unpredicted things that happened that threw monkey wrenches into his spokes and stopped him from the way he wanted it to go down. There's all sorts of different ways he could have done it. Um, I think part of that is like we're just pontificating here. The reason he would have it closer to the work site is just so he can get back to the work site sooner. And also, that's a 140-pound human being he would have had to carry out there. As strong as he was, everyone has their physical limit. And especially, he knew he was going to be murdering all of them that morning. That's, strangling and smothering them in their beds like a coward that he is. That's basically holding a push up for 5 minutes per person. So he was already going to be tired from that, tired from carrying their bodies out into the truck. And then he was going to have to, do a strongman competition by carrying Shanann's body 100 yards out into the field. So, yeah, it would have given him a better chance, but was he physically capable of doing that? Who knows? The good news is the things that he did choose, landed him with a lifetime in prison. I think we can both agree on that. Samuel Williams, 1042, said, "Thanks for another episode in the Watts case, as insightful and interesting as the others. Going to check out your book reading tonight, too. Thanks again." Oh, I appreciate that, Samuel Williams. I can't remember. Did you have any comments on the books? I wonder what you thought of those. Most of those were earlier than this, at the time that these videos came out. I was still learning how to do it. It's a very bizarre thing to talk to nobody for multiple minutes on end, getting no feedback to keep your energy going. You have to just keep it going yourself. It took some getting used to. So maybe it was a little rusty and got some of the kinks out by the time I got to his Master Plan Revealed series. But I'm glad you enjoyed the Master Plan Revealed series. Let me know what you thought of the books. Deb Richardson, love your hard work. Thank you always. Looking forward to more. Thank you, Deb. I'm glad you told me that. Yada, 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 9335 said, CW also told Tammy he thought polygraph, do you mean polygraph? He thought it measured nervousness. Perhaps CW and thought he could pass the lie detector test by not being nervous. I think you are right on the money there, yada, yada, yada. Because we heard all of his comments leading up to the polygraph. He was asking 3 or 4 questions about the process. He was trying to get ahead of it so he could prepare his lying style, because he knows when I lie, this is how I have to think about it in my head. So he was trying to say, so when are you what's that order you're going to ask the questions? He was trying to predict how the polygraph would go so he could say, okay, when they ask question 1, I'm going to think of this while I'm lying, and then it'll be believable, just like all the other times I lie and it's believable. I fooled these guys for 6 hours so far, so I'll just keep it going with the same way I always lie. But what was great about that polygraph, that type of polygraph test, was it made them think, it makes the person taking the test think so much that, you can tell Chris kept hesitating and then he was hurrying up to answer. So it messed up his lying style. I think that's how good the FBI was, is they caught on to his lying style from interviewing him and then chose a polygraph test that would undermine that lying style. Because there's all sorts of lying styles, and you got to go with what's going to work for that liar. Okay. I'm shadow banned by Google. Andy said, spot on regarding the possibility Chris made up the break-in so he could see the camera range of Nate's recorder. Also, agree that he was trying to figure out the polygraph results. Hey, everything I just said right there. I think he intentionally moved the clamps, or whatever they're called, moved them down a little. Tammy had to slide them back up his chest. I wouldn't put it past him. And there's a reply to that comment from somebody else, so check that out. His Master Plan Revealed Part 9. I said I was going to stick to just the comments because they're to me, and the replies are to the comments. The other replies from other people are to the comments, so no reason for me to reply to them. Ben Andre 15 said, excellent chapter. Glad you do it in small bites because each phase has convoluted meaning in CW's plan. That's for sure. Keep up the great work. Always looking for the next chapter. I think I'll wrap up by saying this. As nice as those kind of comments were to read, I'm glad you put another chapter, another video. I'm glad you're doing it. I love this series. As nice as that was to read, it was also a little sad. So I was never able to fully, because I was thinking, none of these people are going to show up after this series is over. I'm not going to just keep doing Chris Watts forever. So why did I end on a sad note there? Now I'm out of time and I can't even pull it around to something else. I don't know. That should give Static and Rust some pretty good fodder to make fun of in an original way. No ChatGPT, Static and Rust. All right, I guess I'll see you guys in part 23.